Welcome in to Gridiron Icon. It has been a minute with the holidays over the last week, but we want to jump in and talk a little bit about what happened over the last week. We're sitting here on Thursday morning, getting ready for Thursday night football on December 2nd, heading into a big weekend as we begin the December stretch to the NFL playoffs. And aside from the NFL, man, we've had some really big news in the college football landscape as well, with a number of the biggest name coaches switching schools. Brian Kelly goes to LSU, and of course, Lincoln Riley goes to USC. And then we're still seeing some shifts as they backfill at Notre Dame and whatnot this morning. So big news in the football world, which is a typical December as we get closer to Christmas time, as they make that stretch run in the NFL towards the playoffs. What a wild week in the NFL this last week. And I am, of course, going to talk a little bit about my favorite team and my bias, the Los Angeles Rams. And frankly, it hasn't been a real good look over the last 3 weeks. The Rams are on a 3-game losing skid at this point, and I don't think anybody in the NFL saw this coming. I certainly didn't see it coming as a fan. And I think that it is starting to raise a lot of questions about the Rams, some of the moves they've made in the offseason and up against the trade deadline, and what in the world can we expect to see from them over the next few weeks. This is such a critical time for the Rams, especially with the Arizona Cardinals really taking command of the division, the Niners on their heels, and of course the Seahawks, and what is somewhat of a surprise, really bringing up the basement in the NFC West. It really looks like that time period, that team, that Carroll Russell Wilson team, is near its end. We'll see this weekend as the Seahawks play the 49ers, and I'm certain that Kyle Shanahan wouldn't like anything more than to end that run for Russell and Pete Carroll. And you got to believe there's changes coming there. But let's jump back to my Rams, the Los Angeles Rams. I don't think any of us saw this coming. To lose 3 games, to go winless in November is shocking. Certainly isn't something that's happened before under the Sean McVay team or coaching group, and it's become a bit of a mind blower at this point. And I think we start just with that, the concept of the super team. Excuse me. The super team, does that ever work? I don't think we've seen a time in the NFL where that's ever worked. Now, some people will point to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the last season or so. They're the Super Bowl champions. And arguably, you could take a look at their roster. Tom Brady certainly made things very easy on him with the skill position players. They already had the Mike Evans. They add the Antonio Brown. They add Rob Gronkowski. Leonard Fournette comes in. And then, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, particularly at the linebacker position, the Bucs were solid. You could argue that's a super team, that there's some super team elements to that. But the thing about the Bucs is they already had the foundation in place. They already had a foundation, and they've got depth at those positions, especially tight end, wide receiver, running back. They have depth. The Rams have tried to emulate a model that we just have not seen work. It has not worked traditionally in the NFL. And we can point to the 2011 Philadelphia Eagles. You remember that there was a lot of the players coming in there, including Vince Young at the time, who were claiming that, hey, we've got a super team here now. This is the way it is. Look out. That didn't end up so well. And I think that we're seeing a pretty similar dynamic right now with the Los Angeles Rams. Troy Aikman even brought it up on the broadcast last week, and Troy Aikman seems to have a thing against the Rams. I don't know. I don't know if that's just a balanced take on his part or not, but he seems to have some bias when it comes to the Los Angeles Rams. Nonetheless, I think he's right. He has never seen this super team model work in the NFL. I haven't either, not in my lifetime. And I became concerned with it going back to last season. But this year, with the Rams adding Von Miller, and then at the last second jumping in and grabbing Odell Beckham Jr., everybody knows, it's easy to see that they're pushing their chips to the center of the table. They're all in. This is what they want to do. They're going for it now. in SoFi Stadium, where they're hosting the Super Bowl this year. They're putting all their chips on the table, and they are all in on winning a Super Bowl. But since picking up Von Miller, they haven't won a game. And OBJ was able to score his first touchdown this past weekend, which was a very nice deep pass, longest play of the year, I believe, for the Rams, from Matt Stafford to OBJ. Nonetheless, you're seeing some of the problems that people that are diehard football fans suspected may happen, which is a chemistry issue. You can't just build a super team, throw them all out there, roll out the ball, and expect them to work. It hasn't worked in the past. Depth is needed in the NFL. Team chemistry is needed in the NFL. Training camps, and a little bit of luck, not to have the type of injuries that can cause a team to derail very early on. And we've seen that in the NFL this year too, with some very significant injuries. Most recently, Christian McCaffrey out for the season. Derrick Henry's missed a handful of games for the Titans. And the Rams themselves have lost Cam Akers and have been leaning on Darrell Henderson rather for the running game. So this concept of super team, I think we're seeing that blow up again a little bit with the Rams. And when you lose 3 in a row and you brought in 2 guys that many people think have Von Miller probably is inarguably a Hall of Famer. OBJ, aside for some flashy highlights and some good numbers early, many feel has the talent to be a Hall of Famer. But putting those guys together doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get wins, and we've seen that. The Rams are 0-3 since adding those 2 guys. And the problems seem to go deeper. Let's focus for a minute on Matt Stafford. Nobody likes to say this because there was so much angst and so much anger about Jared Goff from the Ram fan base, feeling that he was really to blame and he was the guy holding the Rams back from winning a Super Bowl. But folks, I think we're seeing that just isn't the case, that the problems run much deeper than just the quarterback play. Now, I'm not going to get into argument, and as I said in the past, that Matt Stafford isn't more physically gifted than Jared Goff. He is. But Jared Goff has done things that Matt Stafford has never done. And I don't want to make this a Goff-Stafford argument. However, I want to point out that Matt Stafford was handpicked by Sean McVay. They were hanging out together in Mexico, and he was handpicked to be the difference, the guy that was going to put the Rams over the top and bring them to a Super Bowl. Even early season people, all the prognosticators, all the talking heads, everybody was saying, oh, this is it. Rams Super Bowl winners. Give them the trophy. Give them the Lombardi. It doesn't work that way. And we're seeing it now play out on Sundays, Thursdays, Monday nights. It hasn't worked out that way. As much as you may hate Jared Goff, take off the hate hat for a minute and take a closer look at Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is 8-67. 8-67 against teams with winning records. He was 0-6 last season against teams that ended up with winning records. It wasn't like he had no one around him ever in Detroit, folks. He has not put together a solid resume against winning teams. And now he is sitting on a roster loaded with talent. And certainly the Rams have had their injury problems with Cam Akers, Robert Woods. But it's loaded with talent and with guys that have played together for several seasons. And he's losing ball games. He's 0-3 over the last 3 weeks. In those 3 weeks, he's thrown 3 pick sixes. His numbers are still very impressive. Up until I think the last week, people were talking about him as an MVP candidate still. 27 TDs, 9 picks for a 105.2 rating. However, for Lions fans and Detroit fans, this is where that Stat Padford name comes from. And I think that arguably Lions fans would start to kind of nod their head. Great numbers, not winning football games. Here's an interesting stat. When trailing at halftime, this is according to StatHead, the Rams are 7-22 when trailing by at least 1 point at halftime in the regular season and in the postseason since 2017, a win percentage of .241. That ranks about 11th in the NFL, and it's probably better than people think. So that's something to keep in mind with the Rams too, because when they've been trailing at halftime, most people, or at least Rams fans, throw their hands up like, yeah, this is it, end of the road. McVay needs to have a lead at halftime. So they're a little better than people think. However, in the games where they trail by 1 to 8 points at halftime, they're a respectable 7-7, so they're .500, the third best record in the league since 2017. But when McVay trails by more, he has been absolutely abysmal, one of the worst in the league by a wide margin. He truly has, from a coaching style standpoint, and we've seen several teams. We've seen Gurley and Goff. We've seen Matt Stafford. We've seen a couple of backups there in Wolford. We've seen all sorts of different pieces to McVay's offense. He is absolutely abysmal when he's trailing by more than 8 points or more. He has a real problem coming back and winning a clutch football game. And I think the only real example that we could look at, although it never got to that large of a deficit, a large deficit, I should say, was that Monday night game against the Kansas City Chiefs, that epic, epic game where the Rams came back and won in Memorial Coliseum. Just an incredible ball game. However, you combine a Matt Stafford, who does not have even remotely a winning record against winning football teams in his career, and you couple Sean McVay, who has incredible trouble play calling on both sides of the ball, I might add, when he is down by 8 points or more. It's a problem, folks. It is a problem. And it seems apparent when watching the games, and I know we're going to get the whole, all the fans think they know better than the coaches. It doesn't take someone to be an NFL coach or GM for 20 years to see the basics. Defenses have figured out Sean McVay's offense. They're not rolling with the eye candy and all the motion and the RPO, which incidentally has been mostly missing this season. So before you say, oh, come on, armchair quarterbacks, folks, you can literally watch on Sundays and you have a pretty good idea of what play is coming for the Rams with Sean McVay. And if fans are calling it out and screaming at their TVs, you know that defensive coordinators who studied through the night have a real good idea of what he's going to throw at them. So this is a problem. And I think Sean McVay's play calling style, not to mention the defense that they have instituted with Raheem Morris, which has looked abysmal. If you go back and look at the All 11 and you watch some of the film, it's absolutely stunning to see what's going on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, how far the defensive backs are playing off the receivers, just giving them first downs. All of this is kind of starting to implode. And what happens next this Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I believe, is going to say a lot about what goes on with the Rams, not just this season, but over the next couple. They will need to once again make dramatic changes. The defense appears to be really struggling, and you can throw the stats out there. I didn't come with them. When you watch the game, it looks like a bend don't break. Aaron Donald continues to be the highest rated defensive player by Pro Football Focus and all the experts, which doesn't surprise me. He's the best in the league. But even he looks slightly different. He doesn't quite look the same this season. And watch the game and tell me what you think. But I see either a scheme change or something is just different about AD. Interesting to note, jumping back or staying with the defense rather, Aaron Rodgers came out after the game and made a few comments that were very interesting, particularly about Jalen Ramsey. He was able to move Ramsey around. He was able to call audibles, move his receivers around, and he stated that he thought Jalen was playing a lot of nickel defense, playing on the inside. There just isn't any way to crack up how crazy that is. When you've got Davante Adams for the Packers on the field, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, arguably, and you've got the best defensive back in the NFL, almost inarguably, in Jalen Ramsey. He's a shutdown corner. So you've got the best, and you're taking your best and moving him around on tight ends, running backs, slot receivers. You may have an argument, and I respect that, but that's insane. That's why you went out and got Jalen Ramsey, was to erase the best wide receiver on the field. And somehow on this last game, Aaron Rodgers was very openly stating that he was able to move Ramsey around. On the one deep pass, he could see that it was zone. He moved Ramsey out to the edge and got Davante Adams one-on-one with Dante Dion. And it was a deep completion. It's just insane that offensive coordinators and really talented quarterbacks like an Aaron Rodgers are able to see this stuff and so easily adjust to it and move someone like Jalen Ramsey out of the play. That, folks, is coaching. And whether you love what's going on and you're a diehard and you love Sean McVay and you love Raheem Morris, they are being outcoached. And we've seen that in a couple of weeks now. We've seen the frustration mounting. So where do we go from here? Most people would say this Sunday the Rams are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is a get-well game. This is where people jump on and just do a world-class beating on an inferior team. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. We'll see. I think the Rams will win this game. I think they'll get somewhat right against the Jacksonville Jaguars just based on talent and who's on each side of the ball. They're playing against a rookie quarterback after all. But if the Jacksonville Jaguars come out and they just really give the Rams a game, I think that there's real reason to be concerned at that point. They're not beating the good teams. So if the bad teams are giving them a tough time, I think that it's going to be tense. It's going to be real tense in Rams Nation. I think it's going to be real tense for the Rams overall. So, Ram fans, what say you? Sound off on Twitter and whatnot and tell us what you think. I think there's some real genuine concerns here. It's not full-on panic mode, but I think that we're seeing some stuff with Sean McVay that should concern everyone. And that includes his choice of Matt Stafford. If Stafford can't start beating the good teams with the talent he has, this team's going to be in trouble for a long time. He's 33 years old. There's rumors he's dealing with some nicks, some injuries. This, with the number of draft picks we've given up for players, despite the fact that we still have some in late rounds, it's a reason for concern in Los Angeles. So as a Rams fan and as an NFL fan, I think that they are going to be a team to really start to watch over these next 4 weeks. We're going to learn a lot about the Rams and their future here in the next few weeks. Let's switch gears for a second to just the up and down world of Cam Newton. Cam Newton went back to the bench this last Sunday. This was after we all got just buried under clip after clip after clip of him screaming he's back into the camera doing his Superman pose. And then he proceeds to go out and have a 5 for 21 day against the Miami Dolphins. Since he's been back in Carolina, he's now 0-2. Okay. What do we have in Cam Newton? He is 32. He's taken more hits than any quarterback since 2011. What are we getting with Cam Newton at this point? That game on Sunday was absolutely abysmal. It was terrible. After the other game where he came in and he scored a couple of runs, certainly Cam's huge. He's athletic. He's a former NFL MVP. But I think it's becoming apparent that Cam is at the end of his career. That's my take. With McCaffrey going out with an injury, Carolina has had some injury bugs this year, even on the defensive side of the ball. They bring in Cam, and you're thinking, God, it's a smart move. He semi-knows the system. He semi-knows the locker room. This might be a good thing. Cam Newton, back with the Carolina Panthers, comes out, has a pretty solid game, his first game, And then, my God, absolutely lays an egg. 5 of 21 against the Dolphins. Not only was his 23.8% completion rate the worst of his career, it was one of the worst quarterbacking performances in recent memory in the NFL. It was the worst completion percentage for a quarterback with at least 20 pass attempts since Joey Harrington went 5 for 22 with the Detroit Lions in 2004. Think about that. An NFL MVP putting up one of the worst performances since 2004. Former NFL MVP, to be fair. But still an NFL quarterback. 23.8% completion percentage with 20 passes or more. Is it okay to say that Cam is not the world's greatest passer anymore? Now, he had the shoulder problems. He's had all kinds of physical problems, actually. And he's certainly a likable guy in many circles. He's got a big personality. They plugged him in. It'll be interesting to see if he plays this Sunday or if Matt Rule moves back to PJ. However, folks, I think before we start crowning Cam Newton the NFL Comeback Player of the Year, we should just take a deep breath. I think that Cam is a serviceable backup in some offenses. But man, was that bad Sunday. That was not good. What say you on Cam Newton? That was not a lot of fun for really anybody to watch. So I expect the Panthers, particularly with McCaffrey out for the year now, I don't expect them to go in the tank. That's not what Rule does. And Sam Darnold, of course, hurt too. But he's going to make a strong push for the playoffs. He's going to try to make his Panthers competitive. Let's see what happens. But I think Cam Newton at this point, to be fair, is a serviceable backup. He probably should play a role a lot like Marcus Mariota's playing with the Raiders. You know, every now and then they move him in there for that RPO or that, you know, that threat of a run type offense that the Raiders do when they pull Derek Carr and put Marcus Mariota in there. That's probably the best you're going to expect out of a Cam Newton at this point. So let's hold up on Comeback Player of the Year after that performance on Sunday. That was not good. Not good at all. Okay, switching gears again. Mac Jones and the Patriots. Is it time to fear the Patriots? Oh, wait a minute. Did we get a break from fearing the Patriots? They are so solid on both sides of the ball. Bill Belichick and his staff is doing what Bill Belichick and his staff do, which is teach fundamentals, come to play every week, putting players in the best positions for their skill set. It's incredible to watch. The Patriots are an absolute player in the AFC. This is a real deal now. The New England Patriots may make a real strong run at the Buffalo Bills for that division, and you definitely at this point could see them as a wild card. And I don't think anybody wants to play them. They're just playing so well, so solid over the last few weeks, including blowouts. They blew out the Atlanta Falcons. So with that in mind, let's talk about that rookie quarterback. Wow, does Mac Jones look good. And I think there's several of us, including guests I've had on this podcast, that have really thought, another Alabama quarterback. This kid's going to be average at best. A.J. McCarron's name gets thrown around a lot. Guys like that. Folks, Mac Jones looks like the absolute head of that class at this point. And he slid all the way down to Bill Belichick. It's unbelievable how well he's playing. And if you were watching draft night, you saw it with your own eyes. He comes out on stage and he hugs Roger Goodell. And he tells Goodell, yeah, that's where I always wanted to be. I want to be a Patriot. Man, has he proven everybody wrong. And not everybody. There was a lot of people that really looked at Mac Jones and said, hey, he's the most quarterback-ready player in this draft based on his experience in the SEC with Saban in Alabama. But I think he's done even better than people thought he would do. He is so good from the neck up. And even his teammates in that locker room are saying, man, he just came into this system, he learned this system, and he is killing this system. He's doing fantastic. So, wow, Mac Jones. I have him as my early favorite for Rookie of the Year at this point. Watching him play he looks like he's been in the league 2 to 3 years already, and he's not even 12, 14 games into his NFL career. He looks like a kid who comes to play every Sunday. The big news yesterday was that he's actually went out and got a trademark for MJ10, so he's going to start a clothing line, which is a thing now for everybody. So look for your MJ10 gear for Mac Jones. But where are you on this Rookie of the Year chase? Because I think Mac Jones looks like the clear favorite. I mean, he's completing 70.3% of his passes. Folks, he's a rookie. He hasn't even played 17 games. And when you look at that roster, you've got your typical New England Patriot overachieving blue-collar football players, whether it's in the running back room or at the wide receivers, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers. These aren't big-name wide receivers. This isn't Julio Jones. This isn't A.J. Green. This isn't Devontae Adams. This isn't Cooper Kupp. And Mac Jones is completing 70.3% of his passes. And no, he's not just dink and dunking. He's not padding the stats, as they say. I really like him at this point in the season, barring any changes, to be Rookie of the Year. I think the closest competition at this point, and I think this is going to surprise some people, is Micah Parsons in Dallas. When he's coming off the edge, Micah Parsons is a machine. So I think at this point, those two guys for Rookie of the Year and possibly Defensive Rookie of the Year are the guys to be watching. But I am really, really excited to watch Mac Jones down this stretch through the December run when things get tough. And then if they get into playoffs, and I think they will, imagine the valuable experience Mac Jones gets and obtains with the Patriots making the playoffs this year. So those are my takes on this week. I went a little later this week I went Thursday coffee, the solo coffee run on Gridiron Icon. Spent a lot of time on the Rams, Cam Newton, and then the Patriots and Mac Jones. Give me your thoughts. Join us at gridironicon.com anytime, as well as Twitter at Icon Gridiron. Then we're on Instagram at gridiron_icon as well. But give us your opinions. Follow us on YouTube. We actually have a TikTok. We're figuring that out. And give us your opinions. Let's have a talk. Let's find out exactly who you think is going to be Rookie of the Year. What you think of Cam Newton. And man, I, of course, am always excited to see everybody's opinion on my Los Angeles Rams. So thanks for joining us. Again, follow us at Gridiron Icon, like, subscribe, and all the major podcasting hosts. We really appreciate it. We will see you next week.